hers was just baggage. She checked her phone to ring Gerard, but there was no signal. The bus chuffed and coughed up another endless hill into nothingness. Rosie had thought England was a small country, but she had never felt so far away from everything she had ever known. She glanced anxiously at the bus driver, hoping he had remembered she was still there. That last day at work, though, really, when you thought about it, her mother couldn't have chosen to ring at a better time.
"Where the hell is that sodding bedpan? What the hell is going on here? What do you think you're doing?"
The young doctor didn't look more than about 20 years old, and absolutely terrified to boot. He was covering his terror by being aggressive. Rosie had seen it 1,000,000 times before. She rushed to his side. Every other nurse had disappeared from view, and he was trying to help an old lady who appeared to be reacting to the lancing of a particularly unpleasant boil by peeing the bed at the same time. Which would have been fine, but Rosie had only been on the ward 10 minutes, and no one had bothered to give the agency auxiliary even the most cursory show around. She didn't blame the staff nurses. They were up to their eyeballs, and there were different agency nurses in every day. So she had tried to unobtrusively change sheets, bring water to those who needed it, take lunch orders, do the tea round, and empty the bedpans and sharps boxes, and generally help as much as she could without getting in anyone's way, even though she'd worked a 12-hour day in a different hospital across town the day before and was still absolutely exhausted. She was always too terrified that the agency would take her off their roster that she never turned any job down. Meanwhile, the very young, rather posh-looking doc was getting positively hosed with pee and pus, which might, Rosie tried not to think, have been funny under different circumstances, but as it was, she managed to dart to another elderly patient and grab a large cardboard bedpan just in time, knocking it in front of the doc to catch the remainder like a doubles tennis player.
"God,"
said the doctor rudely. The old woman, in pain and upset, started to cry. Rosie knew the young doctor's type. Straight out of medical school, he had barely met a real patient before. He had spent years in nice lecture halls, being treated like the creme de la creme by friends and family for being a student doctor. And he was now getting his first unpleasant wake-up call in the real world. That most medicine was looking after the old and the poor, and very, very little was performing dramatic, life-saving operations on fashion models. There, said Rosie, sitting on the bed and comforting the old lady, who was a shapeless bulk beneath her humiliatingly open hospital robe. It was a mixed ward, and the young doc hadn't even pulled the curtains properly. Rosie did so now. As she did, she heard the shrill tones of someone who she could identify even at this difference as the head nurse.
"Where's that bloody agency nurse? They turn up, hide out drinking coffee all day, and make twice the wage of everyone else."
"I'm here," said Rosie, poking her head out. "I'll be right with you."
"Now, please," said the head nurse. "There's a mess in the men's loos you'll need to sort out. I'd put on some gloves if I were you."
It had been a long, long, long day, not helped by getting home 3 hours after Gerard, to find that, nonetheless, the breakfast dishes were still on the table, next to the huge pile of mail, and he barely turned around from grunting with a mouthful of pepperoni pizza and Grand Theft Auto. Their little flat needed a window open, and, Rosie thought with a sigh, probably the sheets changed. Frankly, the chances of her changing another pair of sheets today were very, very small. So dark, Rosie thought, trying to make out shapes behind the streaky glass of the bus window. It never really got that dark in East London where she'd grown up. The street lights and the cars and the hum of the noise of the traffic and the people and the police helicopter. Then, when Mum had left for Australia, she'd moved to St. Mary's, the hospital in Paddington, where you were never far away from sirens and people shouting and thronged streets. She thrived on living in the city, had always adored London, its shiny side and the dark side she stitched up on a regular basis coming in through emergency or post-surgery. She'd even liked the shabby nurses' lodgings she'd lived in, although buying her own place with Gerard had been, well, it was grown-up, she supposed.